in most public schools in America, and probably throughout the world. And I won't bore you with a history lesson, but there was a day when there was not such a thing as a college school or a public school animal in America. We lived in agrarian societies, and kids went to work on the farm or in the family business. But right around the Industrial Revolution, kids started coming off the farms. Industry began to take foot in America, and as that began to occur, the public schools that we see in America really began to form and to expand. The blueprint for how those schools did business was really modeled in many cases after the factory model, the industrial model, where, you know, at the Model T Ford plant in Michigan, you start with the chassis and you move it down the line and put the tires on, and you move it down the line and put the engine in, and you move it down the line and put the seats in, and at the end of that process, you can really produce a lot of cars quickly and efficiently. And I believe the thinking of the day when public schools were being founded was that we're going to use that same model and superimpose it on education. And so what we have today is we're going to start with your son. We're going to put him in large classrooms with many kids. We're going to move him every 40 minutes or so to another class where he's going to have to shift his entire schema of thinking. He's going to change his books. He's going to change his notebook. He's going to change his focus completely. And we're going to teach him in 5 to 7 sound bites a day. And that's how public schools often do business. And that's not an indictment against public schools. That's the architecture that was handed to them. And I think that public schools are full of well-meaning, hard-working young men and women that are endeavoring to make the world a better place. And so, but the benefit of a private school like Fork Union Military Academy is we get to determine not only the constitution of our student body, but the way that we're going to teach the content area to those students. So in 1951, thereabouts, the president of our school came to believe that students learn better when they're able to focus on one thing at a time. It's intuitively logical. And so he made a bold move that I'm sure ruffled some feathers. And he said, from here on out, we're gonna do school on the one subject plan. And we've been doing it successfully since 1951. And so the way it works, yes, a young boy would come to Fork Union, begin his high school career, and take one class at a time for 35 class days of instruction.
I like the one subject plan for teaching because it gives me lots of time to spend, and the class day is fluid. I can start out working with students, and there may be a grammar concept they don't understand, and I don't have to stop after 50 minutes. We can continue and until they get it right. And I have time immediately for them to practice what they just learned, which you don't have in a public classroom. You only have that 15-minute period. So the students, you may teach them direct objects, and they go home not understanding what direct objects are because they haven't had enough time to absorb it.
When we want to do a lab, when we have to spend extra time on an academic subject or a particular sticky point in the curriculum, we have the time to do that. We don't have to worry about third period coming in, and gee guys, I wish I had more time to explain stoichiometry to you, but guess what? We have another class coming in. We don't have any of that problem at Fork Union Military Academy. So when it's time to teach our students how to balance a chemical equation, we got all day. I came from a public school education background. I had been just got out of grad school. I was teaching in a public school, and I was fortunate enough here to have the exact same textbook as I had in my former school. And so I had some baseline of understanding, and I knew what was in the textbook, and I knew what Fork Union's curriculum was, which is really in line with other typical curricula that you'll find around the state. And what I found after 7.5 weeks of instruction here was that I got about 20% farther at Fork Union, at my first at-bat, if you will, as a teacher, than I had in my former school. And I attribute that to the fact that I call it time harvest. If you go to public school and you have 7 classes a day, that means you have 7 breaks between those classes, and each of them are about 4 minutes long. And so it's not a talking point really in most public schools, but that equates to 28 minutes of the day of your standard public school day, designed to walk around in the hallway and get your book bag and kiss your girlfriend maybe, or text your friends or what have you. And so we harvest that time. If most public school teachers would tell you that they're in crowd control the last minute or 2 of each period, and by the same token, they're in shepherd mode the first 1 or 2 minutes of each period, and so there again you miss perhaps another 28 minutes of the day just managing the transitions, and we do away with those transitions here. So we don't lose time to transitions between classes. We don't lose time to transitions during classes, before and after. We harvest all that time.
One of the things I love best about the one subject plan is that an instructor cannot fake their way through the day. You can't go in and sit down and show a video for 45 minutes and wipe your brow and say, whew, that was close. I'm sad I wasn't prepared that day. Your class is going to know if you're unprepared, and they're not going to react well to that. So being prepared and having a lot for them to do is a very important thing. Another aspect of the one subject plan that's incredibly powerful is within the first day or 2, you're going to have a great idea as an instructor who your individual learners are, and you can differentiate your instruction. You can have an incredibly strong, almost honors level student along with some maybe weaker or more challenged students, maybe mathematically or maybe from a science background, but you can take those 2 students, put them together, and there's a lot of learning that can go on where the teacher's standing, facilitating, and the students are helping teach each other.
I taught in public school for about 5 years before coming to Fork Union, and I might be responsible for an upwards of 150 students on the low end. This would be 6 classes throughout the day, maybe even teaching 2 or 3 different subjects within the science field. At Fork Union, with the one subject plan, I might be responsible for, on average, 15 students, which is huge in comparison. I can actually get to know them individually. I have their names memorized in 15 minutes.
Because it's a small class, I don't have to grade 100 papers. I can grade 10, and so I can look at them thoroughly, and I know how each young man is doing.
I can actually have them sitting there writing essays, and I can watch them as they write their essays and correct them and help them. And you don't have that opportunity in 50 minutes in a public classroom.
I have a class right now of 10 in geometry, and I know each of their names, I know them well. So not only do I hold them accountable, but I know them as people, and we get to talk about more than just geometry.
There's a different bond that forms than you would get in a school where they come, you see them for 45 minutes, and then they leave.
Some would say, well, gee, how are you preparing students for college when they're going to have to go off and they're going to have to take 2 or 3 or 4 other courses? Are you doing them a disservice by forcing them into this one subject line? We've actually heard that, particularly from some of our competitors. And to that I say that our students are tracked. We keep track of our students. They're like our kids, and we speak to them and we keep up with them over the years. And the boys that we talk to indicate to us that they're better prepared than their peers when they got to college. Think about how many high school kids are used to having a mandatory 2-hour study hall period every single school night, where they're sitting at their desk with their feet on the ground, not eating and drinking and carrying on, listening to music and distracted with multiple tasks and multiple assignments.
The kids only have to focus on one subject, and so it allows them to go a little bit more in depth, and they don't have to worry about diverging their attention to a number of different classes simultaneously.
We do away with all the prioritization issues that arise sometimes at night for young people. Do I do my Spanish vocabulary? Do I do my English paper? Should I do my math problems? Yeah, I don't know what to do. At Fork Union, you have one thing to do, and we expect you to do it well, and the proof is in the pudding, where we're very successful.